Pro Team followed up on the success of the first and second encounter with Serious Sam 2 in 2002, released for Microsoft Windows and Xbox. Serious Sam 2 isn't a bad game, it's just weird. It's a clusterfuck of different design choices with some downright horrid and cheap levels that will bring your blood to an absolute boil. For starters, the game looks fantastic with some great textures, lots of humongous outdoor environments, and great particle effects which are in absolute abundance. In terms of the storyline, the game follows on after the events of the second encounter, as Sam is looking for the 5 pieces of a medallion which is supposed to be able to destroy Mentor, the main villain from the first game. What this means in gaming terms is that there's 5 episodes in total with different themes and unique enemy types throughout. There's a large visual difference between each of these episodes, and the amount of environments on offer totally trumps anything seen in the first or the second encounter combined. Compared to the previous games, which had a really dark and gritty feel, Serious Sam 2 feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, albeit a very violent one. The natives from each of the planets Sam visits are little blue or green looking guys that hop around and talk in chipmunk voices.
Hello!
It makes it a bit of a weird mix when you've got enemies exploding with their rib cages and guts flying all over the place as the cute little cartoon people jump up and down shouting yippee over and over. Most of the weapons from the original games are back and reskinned and updated to fit the newer engine, which, as I said, looks gorgeous by the way. And you'll pretty much fall into the same routine in regards to what weapon works best against what enemy. The laser gun is now a plasma gun, whilst the Tommy gun is replaced by twin Uzis. Overall, they work well and their damage output gets the job done. They've also introduced vehicles and turrets which you're able to use every now and then. They are fun to use for the most part, and my only real complaint is that they break pretty damn quick from incoming damage. Another new addition is Sam's ability to throw grenades with the click of the right mouse button. This is incredibly handy early on in the game before you get your hands on explosive weapons, but even after you do, it's still really good at keeping enemies at bay. Once you get the hang of the physics, it can really help you out if you can accurately throw one into a small group of enemies to help thin them out. You'll see some new enemies as well as familiar faces like the Clears and Arachnoids, though they've been heavily modified in terms of appearance and the way they function. Clears, for instance, are much slower and weaker, and Arachnoids now feature projectile laser attacks, as opposed to the pinpoint hit scanning miniguns they had in the prior games, which is actually a good thing on both counts, as these were 2 of the more unbalanced enemies in the original games. Much like Serious Sam 1, the central focus of the game is around arena-style shooting. That being, you go into a large area, it gets locked off, and swarms of bad guys spawn in. Once you kill all the bad guys, you go on to the next area and do it again. And this is fine and dandy, and it's what the series is all about, but in certain levels, the way it's been implemented is downright horrible and comes across as a complete mess. Whereas in Serious Sam 1, enemies would generally spawn from a fixed location or direction, in Serious Sam 2 they just seem to come out of nowhere, and it is downright impossible to locate them half the time. It's a very hard game, even on the default setting, but it's quite often not a very genuinely difficult game, and that's the biggest problem with it. The other thing that doesn't help is that enemy projectiles move extremely quickly, and unless you're standing a good 200 feet away from whatever's attacking you, you're probably going to take a hit. In the first game, if you were strafing or at least moving in, well, I don't know, any direction, you were generally able to avoid most attacks. But it just seems that here, that's never really the case, and you always seem to still take damage. I mean, just look at this shit. Look at it. There's assholes flying in every single direction. It is impossible to get your bearings, let alone get into a rhythm. I feel really sorry for the poor bastards who tried to play this game on an Xbox, as I'm having a tough enough time with just a mouse and a keyboard. It often gets to the point where you just kind of sit there wondering when it's all going to end, as enemies just keep popping up all over the place as your ammo counter gets dangerously low. Now, luckily the game uses a quick save system, which is truly the only thing that makes some of the less well-designed areas bearable. But oddly, it also gives the player a finite amount of lives. Whenever you're killed, you can respawn back at the nearest checkpoint, but what this does is remove all of the ammo you had and just force you to fight all the enemies all over again. I guess they had to put this in for people playing on the Xbox, but for PC players, it just seems out of place. Now, truth be told, this doesn't happen all the time, and some of the later levels are fairly well laid out, but earlier chapters are really piss poor, and I can see this thing turning off a lot of gamers before they've even given the campaign a real chance. And whilst we're on the subject of useless game features, how about the fact that Sam's personal computer from the first game has now been turned into a Cortana-esque looking side character? that jovially chimes in to update Sam's objectives.
Even the royal poo stinks.
And even Sam has some really weird one-liners and frequently makes some truly cringeworthy jokes.
I knew it! There ain't no games without sewer levels.
Like I said, this is a weird game, even with something as basic as the enemy types. I mean, the first episode has you going up against zombie stockbrokers, for instance. Then in the second episode, you're up against these cackling witches that fly around on cauldrons and launch explosive skulls at you. What the fuck were these guys smoking? I don't think the game is outright bad. In terms of gameplay, it's very much in the same vein as the prequels, but the tone and overall theme really puts it in a league of its own in terms of wackiness. It just feels out of place. It doesn't feel like a Serious Sam game.
Don't be a fool. You've got a full life ahead of you.
I'll do it, I swear.
But overall, there's an absolute crapload of content to get through in this game. Even after you've finished the 5 chapters and gotten all of the medallion pieces, you still visit another few planets after that, and in terms of overall length, it really does exceed the first game in every single way. However, this is a very different game than most fans would probably be expecting, and I find it amazing that it was even created by the same development team. Should you still play it? I'd say so. This is still the type of game that will put hair on your chest. Not literally, I meant figuratively, of course. And when you become accustomed to the mechanics of everything and have got Sam's entire arsenal at your disposal, the screen is filled with absolute carnage and it becomes pretty damn fun to play. If you ever have kids and want to get them to stay away from drugs, tell them about Crow Team and show them this game.